Right. My stream goes live. My stream should be live. Let me check. Post. It should be live. I should be live. I'm sorry everyone. Okay, I am live. Sorry everyone. That sounds okay, that sounds better. Okay, that sounds better. Okay, but no repeats. Okay. Okay. Now, before we start, let me figure some. Here it is. Can I not? Is it not possible for me to? Okay, I'm really upset by the fact that I can't actually type in in um in the thing, even though it has it pulled up. So before we start, I need to go to this tip panel. There we go. The one who wants to. Alrighty. And I think that looks like everything, and I think I got literally fucking everything to work, and so now I can close this and I don't need to have it open. That open. Simply this over here. I can open the book over here. And yep. Actually I think I want to switch things up. Move the YouTube chat. Below. And then move it back. Okay, this is like so annoying. Okay, I guess I can't. This is upsetting. This is upsetting to hear. This is upsetting to see. How do I get it to go back? Okay, like that. See, like that. Can I actually? Oh, I actually can. Oh, never mind. I figured it out. Okay, but now I can't see Tika's. This is This is okay. We're actually going to. Then what we're gonna do is. We're going to. Yes, I can. And now I can see Sirius's. And then we'll have YouTube chat on this side. Okay. 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 We freaking we did it. We did it, Reddit. Very happy about this. And I announced it to everyone, I think. Yes, I did. Okay. So we're all good. We're so back. We're so freaking back. It was so over. And now we are so back. So when I have everything and I can see everything, and this is as good as it's gonna get, I think. Unless I do some other stuff, but I don't understand how to use OBS right now, so too bad. So I can't actually do whatever. Now we should probably start. Yeah, that's. I believe that. I think that's real. Second division: associations of humans and non-humans. It is easy to object that despite all the contortions to which we have just subjected ourselves, the scientist is still the one doing the talking. If we are ready to mix scientific controversy and political discussion together in a single arena, we can only be suspicious of a wild extension of speech to things. Humans are still the ones who blather on. Here we have an asymmetry that is not only insurmountable in practice, but insurmountable in theory. If we want to maintain the eminent place of humans and retain the admirable definition of the political animal that has always served as a basis for public life, it is because he spoke freely on the agora that man, at least the male citizen, had the right of citizenship. Fine. Who is saying anything different? Who wants to question this definition? Who wants to undermine its foundation? I am indeed situating myself in the concatenation of these principles, the long and venerable tradition that has constantly extended what was called humanity, freedom, and the right of citizenship. The story is not over. But it just so happens that the Greeks, who invented both capital S science and democracy, bequeathed us a problem that no one has yet been able to solve. Seeking to forbid the exploration of new speech prostheses in order to take into account all the non-humans whom, in any event, we already cause to speak in countless ways, would amount, on the contrary, to abandoning the old tradition and becoming savage for real. The barbarian is indeed, as Aristotle claimed, someone who is ignorant of representative assemblies or who acts out of prejudice to limit their importance and scope. Someone who claims indisputable power through which he short-circuits the slow work of representation. Far from calling this acquisition into question, I claim, on the contrary, to be extending it, naming the extension of speech to non-humans, civilization, and finally solving the problem of representation that rendered democracy powerless as soon as it was invented, because of the counter-invention of capital S science. And then we're actually going to go to... if anyone has any questions, just ask, and I'll try my best to answer. Civilization. Civilization designates the collective that is no longer surrounded by a single nature and other cultures, but that is capable of initiating, in civil fashion, experimentation on the progressive composition of the common. Yep, pretty... That makes sense. Was I on 70? No. No. No, I was not on 70. I was probably... Was I on 62? Yes. Wait. No. I was past this. I was on 70. Oh, I was on 71. Yeah, okay. Still, we have to remain sensitive to the problem. By redistributing speech impedimenta, we have taken an initial opposition between mute entities and speaking subjects and made it undramatic. Restored to civil life, demobilized humans and non-humans can shed the old garments that mark them as subjects and objects in order to participate jointly in the Republic. We are nevertheless not at the end of our troubles, for we have to convert many other features of this war industry before we can have more or less presentable citizens. In addition to being endowed with speech, they have to be capable of acting and grouping themselves together in associations, and there will still be the problem in the following section, finding a proper body for them. Also, one second, I want to do something. I can't do it! Wait, Pod! Wait, oh my god. Kenichi, what's up? That works. Okay. Much better. To understand the nature of the beings to be collected, we must completely do away with the opposition between two types of assembly. This is the only way to define the job that ecology and politics have in common. It will be objected that things and people still remain, and that we are still using the expression humans and non-humans. Even if we place our attention to the speech prostheses they have in common. Even if, to convoke them, we fuse procedures that come from, both from the laboratory and from representative assemblies, the fact remains that our gaze, as if we were watching a tennis match, turns now towards objects, now towards subjects. Thus, the sciences and the politics do not yet have any common population. Let everyone take care of his own side, and the cows will be well looked after, at least as long as they are not mad. It will never be possible to believe that these two terms have to be fused to consider a mix, which be nothing but a frightful melting pot, a monster even stranger than the non-human speech brought into play in the previous section. What is the common matter on which the scientists calling and the politicians both come to bear? The image of a tennis match is not a bad one. Far from referring to isolated spheres that have to be brought together by a higher consciousness or surpassed by a dialectical movement, the notions of object and subject have just one goal: to return the ball to the other side while keeping the adversary in a constant state of alert. We can say nothing about subjects that does not entail humiliating objects. We can say nothing about objects that does not entail shaming subjects. If political ecology used these notions as its point of departure, it would succumb at once to the polemic they carry within themselves. If it claimed to get beyond their contradiction, their miraculous fusion, it would die even faster, poisoned by a violence that runs counter to its physiology. And then 262, I think we're on. No, we're probably on 263 still. And then it's 24. Okay, we're actually not. Oh, we are. We're on 23. We're on 23. Right? Are we on page 72? Yeah. Okay, so 263. And we're on footnote 23. We're about to be on 264. Footnote 23. I have noticed that all discussions on the abandonment of the distinction between object and subject always fall flat. For most readers who have some familiarity with German philosophy, believe the task has already been accomplished by Hegel and his descendants, thanks to the movement of dialectics. Now, dialectics, far from solving the problem, makes it insoluble, since it makes contradiction itself the driving force behind history and even the cosmos. This amounts to extending the artifacts of modernist thought to the world itself. No anthropomorphism is more complete than the one that makes the universe share in the category errors of a few philosophers of the sciences. We can get a good idea of this way of proceeding from a paragraph in Hegel's Logic, where Hegel criticizes Kant for having limited contradiction to thought instead of assigning it to things. The blemish of contradiction, it seems, could not be allowed to mar the essence of the world, or Kant. But there could be no objection to attach it to thinking reason, to the essence of mind. But if a comparison is instituted between the essence of the world and the essence of the mind, it does seem strange to hear how calmly and confidently the modest dogma has been advanced by one, repeated by others, that thought or reason, and not the world, is the seat of contradiction. Hegel, 1817, page 77. Uh, I assume this means section or something. 48, line 48, maybe. Probably section. It's probably. I don't know what this. I don't know what this means. Kant may be wrong in assigning to thought a contradiction that derives, as we have just seen, from the fact that the moderns are incapable of conceptualizing. Kant may be wrong in assigning to thought a contradiction that derives, as we have just seen, from the fact that the moderns are incapable of conceptualizing the political order. But at least he is wise enough not to drag the world into his own delirium. Hegel was unfortunately not so restrained, and thanks to him, the universe is starting to become agitated under the totally improbable forms of objectivity, subjectivity, and the history of the mind. Who's the more naive? Let us have the civility not to drag the associations of humans and non-humans into such wars. Unfortunately, a large part of the philosophy of ecology retains in a popularized form this ambition to get beyond the contradiction between man and nature. What it probably is in the Latour's issue with the subject object dichotomy is probably that for him it almost certainly reaffirms um um another the other great divide he talks about, which is between nature and society, nature and politics, nature and man, as he says here. But for Latour, there is no contradiction. There is no separation between man and nature. There's no reason to even consider these things counter to each other in any sort of way. The only difference is the ways you represent these two groups, humans, people who speak, and non-humans who talk, but in a slightly different manner. That is probably what it is. I think that's what it is. I have to assume. I actually wonder if he might actually get into it in Pandora's Hope quite a lot, but I wonder if he has like an essay or something on this specifically, breaking down why he doesn't like, because I know, but I wonder why exactly, I guess. 72. To put it still another way, subjects and objects do not belong to the pluriverse, whose experimental metaphysics we need to reconstruct. Subject and objects are the names given to forms of representative assemblies so that they can never bring themselves together in the same space and proceed together to the same solemn oath. Yeah, that's what I assume. That's what I assume is like the heart of the issue for Latour, is that in creating this, you end up reaffirming the difference between primary qualities and secondary qualities. The primary qualities that no human, besides the scientist, of course, can access, and the secondary qualities, which are meaningless, really, because, at least to the scientist, because they're secondary. They don't matter. They're stuff like smell, taste, these things, you know, that are given to subjects' fancy. I'm not responsible for thrusting these notions into the political discussion. They are already there. They have always been there. They have been created to install mutual horror. The only question thus becomes, whether one can bring this reciprocal disgust to an end in order to form a different public life around them. Here is the turning point, where we are going to grasp the enormous difference between the civil war of the subject-object opposition and the civil collaboration between the human non-human pair. Yeah, okay. I assume that he wants to replace the subject-object with non-human human, like you said, but I'm glad he says it explicitly here. So whenever we talk about that distinction, it is the thing for him that is replacing the subject-object pair. That's important to know. Just as the notion of speech in the preceding section designated not someone who is speaking about a mute thing, but an impediment, a difficulty, a gamut of possible positions, a profound uncertainty, so too the human non-human pair does not refer to us to a distribution of the beings of the pluriverse, but to an uncertainty, to a profound doubt about the nature of action, to a whole gamut of positions regarding the trials that make it possible to define an actor. An actor, of course, is someone who acts. Quite simply. I'm going to look at the footnote, but I'm almost certain that's what he's going to... I think that's literally what it is. Actant, or actor or actant, is a term from semiotics covering both humans and non-humans. An actor is any entity that modifies another entity in a trial. Of actors, it can only be said that they act. Their competence is deduced from their performances. The action, in turn, is always recorded in the course of a trial and by an experimental protocol, elementary or not. Yeah. Let us begin with the good sense evidence from which we are going to seek to distance ourselves little by little. According to tradition, the social actor, endowed with consciousness, speech, will, and intention on the one hand, has to be distinguished from the thing that obeys causal determinations on the other. Although they are often conditions, even determined, human actors can nevertheless be said to be defined by their freedom, whereas things obey only change of causality. A thing cannot be said to be an actor in any case, not a social actor, since it does not act in the proper sense of the verb. It only behaves. That's a very interesting... I actually really like that distinction. Acting and behaving. I like that. That's a fucking good line. It's actually a pretty fucking good line. 24. Collins and Cush, 1998, go further than anyone else in science studies toward the analysis of this dichotomy between human action and human behavior, present the most carefully argued version of it. Holy fucking shit, wait. I have to download this. We're gonna go type in Collins. Oh wait. I always do that. Collins and Cush. The shape of actions. What humans and machines can do. Okay. We are... I actually want to look at this paper. Oh, it's not a paper, it's an entire fucking book. How many pages is it? How many pages is it? It probably won't tell me, will it? Probably won't tell me. I wish it would. Will it tell me? Can I find somewhere else? Sorry for getting sidetracked, because this is actually really interesting. Because if Latour is explicitly taking from this, then this would be really good. And Colin, at least, has come up before, so I have good reason to believe that, like, this is someone that, like, you know, Latour is going to get along with, for the most part, quite a bit. Okay, it's only 200 pages. It's only 200 pages. Ah, yes. Okay, I should get that. 73. Also, Pippa, if you want, if I think after this, I'm going to, I know you sent me a paper, and I actually want to go over it. I think I actually might want to go over it on stream after we get done with this. And, since it's not something, I haven't read it, it'll be my first time reading it, and I want to go through it. It's not very long. I'm looking over it right now, but I think that would be good. I think that'd be good. I'd like that. I'd like that little paper you sent me. It is easy to see how these definitions paralyze political ecology. They oblige it in effect to choose too soon between two catastrophic solutions, each of which returns to the vocabulary of two illicit assemblies: naturalization on the one hand, socialization on the other. Yes, it is the reaffirming, so I was right. I was understanding it in the other context as well. The reason why Latour does not like the subject-object distinction is because at least maybe he likes it in, maybe he could be technically fine with it in some forms, as long as by subject and object they mean human and non-human specifically, but but or something like that, or something of that sort, of like what he means by human and non-human. But it's because in most cases what it actually does is end up reaffirming naturalization and socialization. It recreates the two house divide, and so obviously Latour has issues with that. Either it takes the model of the object and extends it to the entire biosphere, humans included, in order to solve the problems of the planet, but then it no longer has at its disposal human actors endowed with the freedom and will do the triage and decide what must be done and what must not be done. Or else, conversely, it extends the model of will to everything, including the planet, but then it no longer has the raw, unattackable, non-human matters of fact that allow it to silence the multiplicity of subjective viewpoints, each of which express itself in the name of its own interest. I should want to go over this again. Where does this stop at? It takes the model of the object and extends it to the entire biosphere, humans included, in order to solve the problems of the planet that no longer has at its disposal human actors endowed with freedom and will to do triage and decide what must be done and what must not be done. Whereas conversely, it extends the model of will to everything, including the planet. No longer has the... Oh, I see. Either it gives the it makes the primary force nature, or it makes the primary force socialization, and so either you can't do anything because you're only under the control of these causal forces, or you can't do anything because you're under the because you can never actually determine who's quote unquote right and who's wrong. Is what he's going for. Let us not imagine that political ecology has a middle way at its disposal, an intermediate solution that would combine a bit of naturalization, a bit of socialization. For then it would have to draw the line between the electable necessity of objects on the one hand and the subject's freedom on the other. Ineluctable. Yeah, okay, I said that right. This would presuppose that the problem has been solved. Political ecology would know what actors are, what they want, what they can do, and also what things and their bundles of causality are. But what miracle would it but by what miracle would it master that economy between freedom and necessity? Where would it get this absolute knowledge, either from nature or from society? But to produce the absolute knowledge that draws the line between things and people, political ecology would have already had to choose between naturalization and socialization, between ecology and politics. It cannot do both at once without contradiction. This is what has made it so unstable since its emergence. This is what makes it shift brutally between total power and equally total impotence. Now, as I see it, political ecology is no longer self-contradictory. It ceases to believe that it bears either on things or on people, or on both at once. And Pippa says, nice. It looked interesting. Sort of review / summary of Latour, not too academic. May contain spoilers for Aramis. Everyone will forget. Everyone will forget. I actually read a little bit of it, and yeah, it'll totally contain spoilers for Aramis. It's literally gonna like fucking spoil the ending of it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna spoil everything. I'm actually gonna spoil everything. And I'm like, okay. Fortunately for us, this venerable distinction does not have the solidity that the patina of centuries seem to lend it. To tell the truth, it is somewhat worm-eaten, and it holds together only through the polemics to which it lends itself, and will keep lending itself for some time to come. Detached from their claims to describe domains of reality, the term objects and subjects are reduced to polemical rules that make it possible to resist the supposed monstrosity of their confrontation. What is a subject, actually? That which resists naturalization. What is an object? That which resists subjectivization. Like the warring twins of mythology, they are hairs of the division into two powerless assemblies that we abandoned above. By changing constitutions, we are thus also going to find out how we can get rid of the tiresome polemics of objects and subjects. Wag, I'm gonna have to time you out for spoilers. I'm gonna time you up for spoilers. If you assert your freedom and someone tells you rather arrogantly that you are in fact only a sack of amino acids and proteins, you will of course react with indignation against this reduction by flaunting the imprescriptible rights of the subject. Human beings are not things, you will say, pounding on the table with your fist. And you will be quite right. If you assert the indisputable presence of a fact and someone explains to you rather arrogantly that you have created this fact out of your own prejudices and that you're dealing with a mere social construction, you will resist this reduction violently, loudly, reasserting the autonomy of capital S science against all the pressures of subjectivity. These are the facts, you will say, pounding the table with your fist. And you will still be right. To avoid one monster, we are ready to defend another. For people to plunge into such battles and wear out their fists by striking the table over and over, there must no longer be a civil life. People must already have agreed to go down in chains into the cave. And then we'll look at footnote 45. Uh, 25, sorry. I said 40. I don't know why I said 45. Not even on page 45. We're on page 70. 4. For an anthropology of fist-pounding tables, see the witty article by Ashmore Edwards et al. 1994, and the detailed description of Hairston Smith 1997. Many fists were bruised and many desks pounded during the Science War episodes. Wait a second. Hold on, I have to look at these two. That sounds funny. Wait, hold on. This is actually fun. I should just do Ashmore. And then I'll remember Hairston Smith. I fucking love. I love this guy. What was it called? What was it? When was it? 1994? Is this the only one? Okay, no, it isn't. So we can just... The bottom line, the rhetoric of reality demonstrations. That's what it is. And also the one by Hairston Smith. What do you mean? Okay. I don't get it. It doesn't. This doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. Okay. What if I type Smith? Smith? Barbara? Oh, this is why. And then... Wait, did they miss the N? Wait, I think they might have missed the... They did. They did miss the N. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay, so this is the only one. Okay, so this is it. Belief in resistance, the dynamics of contemporary... Sorry, I just wanna freaking... I just wanna flip in, get this. 74? Leon? No, 75. We started 75. And I finished out this out, so we don't need to go over it. Let us suppose now that someone comes to find you with an association of humans and non-humans. An association whose exact composition is not yet known to anyone, but about which a series of trials makes it possible to say that its members act. That is, quite simply, they modify other actors to a series of trials that can be listed thanks to some experimental protocol. This is the minimal, secular, non-polemical definition of an actor. 264. Go to 26. This minimal definition of action was offered some time ago by the semiotics of A.J. Grammas, set 1976, and brought to science studies by Latour, 1988. It has proven very useful for the analysis of the emergence of new actors whose performances they do in trials always precede their competences, what they are. See numerous examples in Latour 1999b of an astonishing analysis of the ontologies proper to the new laboratory actors. See Reinberger, 97. I assume 1988 is that isn't We Have Never Been Modern. I think that's Pasteurization of France. I think that'll be the English edition of the Pasteurization. Yeah, that will be. Because Pasteurization of France, Science in Action came out in 1987, and the English translation came out a year later. Yeah. I think that's right. Anyone in chat can correct me if I'm if that's not the actual book. Are we dealing with objects? By no means. Every non-human that is a candidate for existence finds itself accompanied by a series of lab coats and many other professionals who point to the instruments, situations, and protocols without our being able to distinguish yet who is speaking and with what authority. There are indeed actors here, or at least to rid the word of any trace of anthropomorphism, actants, acting agents, interveners. Are we dealing with subjects? Not with subjects either. There are laboratories, sites, situations, tests, and effects that can in no case be reduced to the gamut of action anticipated up to this point under the notion of subject. Here we recognize the matters of concern we met in the preceding chapter, whose proliferation, as we have seen, attest to the scope of the ecological crises. And then we go back to 264. And we go to 27. For a very early and magnificent description of all the agencies necessary for the accompaniment and stabilization of a fact, see Fleck, 1935. That would be very interesting. That would be very, very interesting to read. That's crazy that that Latour citing something that came out in 1935. Um, for that. That's actually very interesting and good. Ah, I freaking knew it. I knew it. Encyclopedic level of knowledge. You just cite everything. If instead of being asked to react to the violent volley of an object or subject, you are thus offered in a civil way associations of humans and non-humans in a state of uncertainty, you do not become indignant and pound on the table, according to the two modalities of realism. No indisputable word comes to reduce you to the state of a thing. And then back to 264. I think that's something by Isabel Stangers. No, that isn't. That's later. For the use of these notions of actor and actant to erase the distinction between social and non-social elements, see the case of a technical project in Latour 1996A. Wag, I wonder what this could be. I wonder what this is. I wonder what this is. I wonder what this is. The speech prostheses. Yes, it fucking totally is, yeah. The speech prostheses are, on the contrary, quite visible, involved in entirely explicit controversies. It is not a matter of replacing a gamut of actions traditionally associated with the subject by a shorter range of actions that will reduce the first. On the contrary, the associations that are presented to you seek to add to the first list, a longer list of candidates for action. Does making the speech prosthesis visible take away from the statements made, take away quality from the statements made? By reducing them to social construction, to prejudice, passions, or opinions that force you to be indignant over the domination of subjectivity? Not in the slightest, since here too, the associations that are presented to you are not there to reduce the list of actions to a list of the prejudices, interests, or social passions that have already been recorded. They are simply and very politely proposing to extend the repertory of actions through a longer list than the one that had been available up to now. Repertory? Repertory.
Repertory.
Okay, I'm saying that right. Another term for repertoire. Never heard that before. I've never heard that before. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I maintain that this quite innocent notion of a shorter or longer list of elementary actions suffices to redistribute the cards between humans and non-humans, to disengage this pair from the perpetual battle carried on noisily by objects and subjects, the former seeking to come together under the banner of nature, the latter wanting to regroup in society. The notion of a longer or shorter list has, above all, the signal advantage of banality. It leads a modest, common, civil life, far from the great outbursts of the interminable Cold War carried on between objects and subjects, the even more interminable war carried out against all the others by those who claim to be getting beyond the object-subject opposition. It is clearer now. It is clearer now. The extension of the collective makes possible a presentation of humans and non-humans that is completely different from the one required by the Cold War between objects and subjects. In 264. And then footnote 29. The notion of presentation comes from Stangers, 1996. Will play an essential role in Chapter 5 as we exit from the solution of mononaturalism and multiculturalism, thanks to the role of diplomacy. 76. It is clearer now the extension of the collective makes possible a presentation of humans and non-humans as different from the one required by the Cold War between objects and subjects. The latter were playing a zero-sum game. Everything lost by one side was won by the other, and vice versa. Humans and non-humans, for their part, can join forces without requiring their counterparts on the other side to disappear. To put it yet another way, objects and subjects can never associate with one another. Humans and non-humans can. As soon as we stop non-humans as objects, as soon as we stop taking non-humans as objects, I'm fucking up so bad. As soon as we allow them to enter the collective in the form of new entities with uncertain boundaries, these that hesitate, quake, and induce perplexity, it is not hard to see that we can grant them the designation of actors. If we take the term association literally, there is no reason either not to grant them the designation of social actors. I'm going to go to the footnote, but as I'm doing that, I want to say something. Latour talked about how everyone knows. Everyone knows what they're thinking, what they're thinking about, what they're writing about by reading it afterwards. And I have to say, I fucking swear, I read the words in my head accurately, and then I say them, and I listen to myself, and because obviously you can hear your own voice, hear what you have to say, and I'm like, oh, I just completely fucked that up. I said that completely wrong. I just like mixed up several words, or I like just like reversed it, or I reversed it. Let us not forget that the social as associations invented by Tard bears no relation to the social of Durkheim. On the difference between the two, see Latour 202, 2002 C. I don't know why I said 202. That's not right. I'll probably take 202C, right? I typed it again. Sorry, 2002C. There's another one, right? Gabriel Tard and the End of the Social. This, in The Social in Question, New Bearings in the History and the Social Sciences. And I assume that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. 264, and we are still on 76, I believe. Tradition refused them this label in order to reserve it for subjects whose course of action took place in a world, a framework, an environment of things. We now understand that this refusal had no cause other than the panicky fear of seeing humans reduced to things, or, conversely, seeing the prejudices of social actors preclude access to things. In order to avoid both this reification and the social construction, the border between social actors and objects had to be carefully patrolled, such as it was the miserable device to which all the horror films that emerged from the cave had to resort. These fears are no longer called for if what comes knocking at the door no longer has the polemical form of a silencing matter of fact, but the ecological form of a perplexed non-human entering into relationship with the collective and gradually being socialized with the complex equipment of laboratories. Nothing is easier than to lengthen the list of accidents, whereas one could never manage the relationships between objects and social actors, no matter what dialectical pirouettes one thought of oneself supple enough to carry out. Associating social actors with other social actors. Here's a task that is already more feasible, and that nothing forbids us to accomplish. And we will look at the 264 note, and we're actually going to go to the next one, since this one was so short, and we're going to finish it up. It's only to page 82, and we're on page 77. So it's only 5 more pages. Isabel Stengers has suggested using the expression, the ecology of practices characterized her project. But one can also speak of risk as Beck does, or of the public life as Dewey does, defining it as follows. It's indirectly and seriously affected for good or for evil form, a group distinctive enough to require recognition and a name. Dewey, 1955. I assume original was published in 1927. Then back to 77. Before we continue, I guess let's go over what we just read. Why does Latour not like the subject object distinction? As it was said kind of pretty obviously and was made very clear, it is because it reaffirms the distinction between humans, the complete separation between humans and non-humans, the complete separation between nature and man, or nature and the social, or nature and politics. It completely separates these things still. And what does Latour want to do? He wants to replace it with humans and non-humans. And humans and non-humans make up more or less, I think, one list. He says it is a lengthening of one list. We call them humans and non-humans, but they're all in the same list. They're all actors or actants, to use the other term he used. And so yes, I think that's. Is there more to really get into? Is there more? Well, I guess it's less. Is there more? Is this, or is that just kind of a good quick summary of what it was? I think so. I could go in. You could go into it a lot more, but like that's the case with like a lot of the tour stuff. It's like yeah. He's right now. He's doing Ant. This is just what he's been doing is just Ant. It's just fucking Ant. Like most of his books are just like premises taken from Ant. Even if he doesn't say he's doing like an Ant thing, he is. He is doing an Ant. He's an Ant theorist, like through and through. Yeah. Also, I actually want to check something real quick. That's right. This. Yep. Okay. Third division between humans and non-humans. Reality and recalcitrance. The entire history of diplomacy is proof. Actually, hold on. Before we continue, I actually want to look at something. What's the title of this? Second division, associations of humans and non-humans. And then what was the first one? I think that was 63. It wasn't 63. It was 62. First division, learning to be circumspect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure of something. Third division between humans and non-humans. Reality and recalcitrance. The entire history of diplomacy is proof. As long as weapons are not checked at the door, peace talks cannot take place in a civil fashion. Our strategy consists in a gradual reduction of dramatic tension that allows the current warrior swords to be converted into plowshares for future citizens. In this chapter, I'm not seeking to define the fundamental metaphysic that would tell us once and for all how the universe is furnished. On the contrary, I would like to reopen the discussion, in the absence of any form of hidden decision concerning these furnishings. I want simply to find out what equipment has to be available to populations in order for them to assemble into a viable collective, instead of separating into two illicit assemblies that render each other mutually powerless and prohibit the exercise of public life. Um, I want to say something. Latour often takes positions like this. Um, and he I was arguing with some people, and I think one of them literally called him cowardly um for him doing this. That he just wasn't willing to like give his own thing. But there is a specific reason for why Latour doesn't. What in the fucking world makes like someone think that someone who believes like Latour does in the idea that, in the lack of great men, for one, in the idea that things don't move on their own, that a force has to retrieve them, that A cannot move by its own force alone. Something else has to grab it. Like, in what world does that person think? Uh, in what world could that person like write about like solving all of these great problems on their own completely, and still being faithful to like the very things they're writing? It's just it was just really silly. I remember that because the very specific reason for why Latour doesn't answer stuff like this is because he's just one guy and he can't. The collective can't be assembled by one person alone, just as science can't be done by one person alone. You need others. Not just other humans, but other non-humans as well. You need always something more than you. And Latour's not naive enough to think that he can do this by himself. But this is like something. It's literally the reason why I named the server Pandora's Hope is because that's what he literally says at that's what he literally says at the end of the first chapter of Pandora's Hope. I can't reach this on my own. I can't reach into the bottom of the box on my own. I need your help. Will you give me a hand? For this operation of pacification, I propose an exchange of courtesies, a sort of gentleman's agreement. Why not credit your adversaries with the properties you hold dearest? We have just seen that this was possible for the terms speech and social actor, which had been thought to be anthropomorphic. There was no reason to reserve them for humans, since they are perfectly suited to non-humans with which humans share their collective existence increasingly every day, thanks in large part to the work of laboratories. Now we have to test the reciprocal proposition and look at terms often reserved for the aforementioned objects, for example, reality. Citizens are equipped for speech. They can act and associate among themselves. We now face the task of procuring a proper body for them. 1 second, my hair is in my face again, and it's upsetting me. I'm upset. Okay, there we go. Retaining the part of the notion of external reality that was associated with the old polemics of the cave is, of course, out of the question. We also know that abandoning that polemics does not deprive us of all contact with reality. It does not consign us to the tragic destiny with which we are threatened by the epistemology police. Here, too, we can appreciate the full difference between the work accomplished by the subject-object opposition and what the association of humans and non-humans allows. No one would ever appeal to his subjectivity except to avoid the abomination called reifying, objectifying, and naturalizing. To keep that monster from seizing power, one would do anything. One would even maintain that there are such things as subjects detached from nature, endowed with consciousness and will, with an imprescriptible right to liberty. In short, subjects that are radically and forever exempt from the cruel necessity of causal change. And it is indeed a monster that threatens the subject. Under cover of nature, there emerges the indisputable speech that we have shown in the second section above to be so very aberrant. But why would anyone resort to such an aberration? It takes powerful reasons. Otherwise, this indisputable speech would at once appear for what it is, a contradiction in terms. When people make up their minds to use it without remorse, it is in order to struggle against another abomination, the violence of political passions, the vagaries of the opinions, beliefs, and values and interests that threaten to invade the definition of the facts, dissolve objectivity, ruin access to things themselves, and replace the real world with the old refrain of human feelings. To keep this other monster from seizing power, one would do anything. One would even maintain that apart from all human society, there are indisputable, objective, external laws that are absolutely exempt from the agitations of the crowd, for which subjects must kneel in humility. At each swing in the pendulum, the range widens. One absurdity is followed by a larger one that has the opposite meaning. This infernal oscillation is what has gradually rendered the notion of external reality useless over the centuries. There is seemingly nothing more straightforward than this notion. There is actually nothing more diabolically political. Every single aspect of its definition is designed to avoid the power of some monster to accelerate the access to power of a still more horrible monster that will erect a barrier against the first. We shall see in the following chapters how to replace the ill-founded externality of the current polemics with the desired exteriorization that has been discussed and decided on due process. For the moment, we must simply be sure that when we bring the social actors endowed with speech together in the collective, we are not going to lose all access to external reality in the process. We find ourselves with the usual phantoms of the social sciences, symbols, representations, myths, and other non-existences of the same stripe that never hold up except by contrast with nature, which is reserved for the natural sciences. If we want the collective to be able to come together, it behooves us to dissociate the notion of external reality from that of indisputable necessity, in order to be able to distribute it equally among all human and non-human citizens. We are thus going to associate the notion of external reality with surprises and events, rather than with the simple being there of the warrior tradition, stubborn presence of matters of fact. Humans are not specially defined by freedom any more than they are defined by speech. Okay. I don't know if you're still here, Pippa, but something I was confused about, but I think quite makes a lot more sense now, is matters of fact, matters of concern are supposed to replace matters of fact. And I think he said that earlier, but I didn't comment on it. But he's commented on it again, so I'm saying it again. So I'm saying it instead of just thinking it. But I'm glad he did that. And so I think that's why in the first chapter he talked about these are still the matters of fact, because matters of fact are a way of talking about something, conceptualizing it, I guess. And so yes. but Latour wants to move away from matters of fact and towards matters of concern, which explains the title of the subtitle of the essay, Why Has Critique Run Out of Steam? I thought that was, but it was a bit confusing. I think it was a bit confusing. It makes sense, but it was a bit confusing. It was a little bit confusing. Humans are not specially defined by freedom any more than they are defined by speech. Non-humans are not defined by necessity any more than they are defined by mute objectivity. The only thing that can be said about them is that they emerge in surprising fashion, lengthening the list of beings that must be taken into account. It is important to understand here that the solution in question is not fabulous, dialectical, new, exotic, baroque, oriental, or profound. Its banality is its best quality. It belongs to the everyday world. It is secular. It is ordinary. It is superficial. It is drab. And then we are on 265. Francois Julien's work, Julien 1995, on Chinese philosophers has the great merit of showing us to what extent Westerners have dramatized the question of the external world and made effectiveness incomprehensible. Ah, that sounds so good. Sounds so good. 79? Yeah. Its very banality makes it an ideal candidate to replace the fuss and bother, the subject-object opposition. What better foundation for common sense than the very self-evidence of these humans and non-human actors whose association is sometimes surprising. Nothing more, nothing less. You understand better now the lesson of political ecology that seemed paradoxical when we first encountered it in Chapter 1. Ecological and health crises, I said, can be spotted through the ignorance of connections between the actors through the sudden impossibility of summoning them up. The real merit of militant ecology is the ever new surprise that comes when a new actor, human or non-human, emerges in the course of action when we least expect it. The definitive form of the human, the ineluctable composition of nature. These are just what militant ecology is most likely to miss. Political ecology cannot distribute either freedom or necessity once and for all. It surely cannot decide in advance that nature possesses all necessity and humanity all freedom. It finds itself engaged in experiment in the course of which the actors during the trial try to connect with one another or to do without another. Yes, the collective is indeed a melting pot, but it does not fold in together objects of nature made of matters of facts and subject endowed with rights. It mixes together actants defined by lists of actions that are never complete. If a maxim had to be stitched under the flag of political ecology, it would not be, as some of its militants still believe, the lapidary formula. Let us protect nature. It would be a different one, much better suited to the continual surprises of its practice. No one knows what an environment can do. And that is a Spinoza reference, I think. No one knows what the body can do. Who's that from? Yes, it is Spinoza. It is Spinoza. It's a Spinoza. It's a fucking Spinoza. Which makes sense. In Pasteurization of France, Spinoza comes up. And basically all of this is him continuing what he did in Pasteurization of France, the tenets he laid out in Pasteurization of France. In this situation of ignorance, whereas the emergence of an object or a subject can provoke indignation, the emergence of a new association of humans and non-humans, other protocols, other trials, other lists of actions, can only give rise to relief, since the experimentation is beginning, the repertoire of actions is not closed. While subjects may well find it unbearable to have their speech cut off by an object, an irrefutable word, humans can experience pleasure when they discover that they are in the presence of new non-humans that can participate in the composition of their collective existence. And then back to 265 for note 33. I have come to understand this thanks to Gomart 1999 and Gomart 2002, along with a whole series of recent works on what becomes of subjectivity and objectivity of subjectivity once objectivity has been transformed by science studies. See in particular Despret 1999 and Berg and Moll 1998. And we're on 80 still. And I messed up the typing. I can't type letters, I guess. Numbers, I guess. If objects are scandalized to find themselves cast into doubt by the accusation of social construction, non-humans find only advantages in being offered new resources, allowing them to land, as it were, in the collective. Neither subjects nor objects could absorb without scandal the modification of the list of accidents to be taken into account. What was given to the one had to be taken from the other. The pairing of humans and non-humans is designed, on the contrary, for just this purpose, to allow the collective to assemble a greater number of actants in a single world. Terrain is now wide open. The list of non-humans that participate in the action is expanding. The list of humans who participate in their reception likewise. We no longer have to defend the subject against reification or to defend the object against social construction. Things no longer threaten subjects. Social construction no longer weakens objects. See ya, Tikas. Yeah, that is almost certainly what he means. He almost means it. Actually, I think he uses the term trials in Pasteurization of France. In Pasteurization of France, his ideas get literally laid out, and I think he speaks of trials there too. I can open this I figured out I can open another PDF without it fucking it up. So I'm gonna open Pasteurization of France and look for the word trials. Bruno Latour, where's Pasteurization of France? Okay, it's the Pasteurization of France. I put the, so since I never say the, I confuse myself. Trials. And I did it again. I typed the word that I wanted to find. In something else. Yes. He literally calls them, I think, he calls them trials of strength. He calls them trials of strength, which I think he takes on again in Science in Action. Readers may object that there is still a total difference between human social actors and non-human social actors, so the former can never be mastered, the latter must, on the contrary, obey nothing but brute causality. If such an objection is raised, it is because readers are still using the old model that viewed human subjectivity as something that intervenes to disrupt the objectivity of laws, to pollute the quality of judgment, to suspend the succession of causes and effects. Those readers are still making use of the old distribution of roles as the necessity of things, the liberty of subjects, either to chasten nature and elevate man, or to glorify nature and belittle man. In both cases, they are continuing to use the polemical energy still left in the notion of object-subject and are continuing to function as if we were still living in the old cosmos, with its radical distinction between sublunary and superlunary worlds. It was in order to keep human passions from disturbing objects that the need for strict respect for causality was endlessly stressed. For readers to be fully convinced, it seems to me that they need only take seriously the label actor that was introduced in the preceding section. Actors are defined above all as obstacles, scandals, as what suspends mastery, as what gets in the way of domination, is what interrupts the closure and the composition of the collective. To put it crudely, human and non-human actors appear first of all as troublemakers. The notion of recalcitrance offers the most appropriate approach to defining their action. Anyone who believes that non-humans are defined by strict obedience to the laws of causality must never have followed the slow development of a laboratory experiment. Anyone who believes conversely that humans are defined at the outset by freedom must never have appreciated the ease with which they keep silent and obey, must have failed to weigh their connivance with the object world to which people seek so often to reduce them. And then we go back to 265, 34. One of Isabel Stenger's contributions is that she has shown how the social sciences would finally become scientific if they agreed to treat humans as things. That is, paradoxically, with all the respect with which a researcher in the so-called hard sciences manages to let himself be surprised by the resistances offered by his object of study. The indifference of non-humans protects them against objectivization, whereas humans, always concerned about doing well, especially when a lab coat asks one of them to imitate an object, are not very good at defending themselves against enrollment and objectivization, proving the anthropomorphic and polemical role of objectivity, moreover, by their perfect imitation. The argument is developed still further in Discrete 1996, and especially in Discrete 2002, where it becomes a means for sorting out the experimental arrangement of psychologists, from what I call the Stenger's disparate shibboleth. See Latour forthcoming. Is he referring to fucking AIM? Is he referring to AIM? He might actually be. Oh no. There is something called forthcoming. I wonder what this is. Once again in Latour forthcoming. How to talk about the body. Is this Latour? Okay, this is Latour. Forthcoming, how to talk about the body. The normative dimension of science, that is. Okay. 81. To distribute roles from the outset between the controllable and obedient object on the one hand, and the free and rebellious human on the other, is to preclude searching for the condition under which the trial, through which the arena in which the labor at the price of which one must make these entities exchange among themselves their formidable capacity to appear on the scene as full-fledged actors, that is, as those who forbid any indisputable transfer of force or reason, as mediators with whom it is necessary to reckon, as active agents whose potential is still unknown. I'm not arguing that the role of objects and subjects must be fused. Self-evident distribution of roles must be replaced, as has been done above for the notions of speech and social actor, by a range of uncertainties going from necessity to freedom. To recognize on the side of the old arena of nature that consequences always slightly exceed their causes, on the side of the new arena that what causes beings to act is still subject to argument. This is sufficient to calm down the discussion and give all associations of humans and non-humans the minimum reality that is needed to bring them together. So how would I describe what this was about? I guess it was about explaining the human non-human distinction, which for Latour isn't really a division. Isn't really division. How does he start out with it? Maybe that'll give me some help. I guess what he wanted to do here was kind of simply what the social arena that he was sorry, what the arena that he was trying to bring about to calm down things was to make it so that there was a commonality, some commonality, some overlap between non-humans and humans, and um, is that how you want to describe it? Really sure, really sure. Yeah, I don't know exactly. That was good. That was good. Um, we are going to do a um, hmm, I'm going to, while I think of things, I'm going to try to, while I think of how I might want to explain this, I'm going to set up another stream so I can send everyone there just when I'm done. Oh, wait, I didn't want to close all those, I don't think. History, close tabs. History, recently closed tabs. One second. But yeah, I'm gonna create the I'm gonna create the thing, and after I create the thing, I will send everyone there. I really don't know how I want to describe that. I'm really kind of yeah, another stream because we're gonna be going over the thing that sorry, I keep saying the thing. We're going to be going over we're going to be over going over the it's a short little article and I'm gonna kind of just give it like a little short review of what WAG sent me because I want that. Oh, I can just okay. I can just click create. What happens if I click go live? Later date. Streaming software. Schedule stream. We're gonna create new. I'm gonna add a title, and it's going to be called. What's the title of the? Let me go see WAG. What's the title? We're just gonna do this. We're just do it. If anyone wants to come on, they are more than welcome to talk. They're more than welcome to. Um, we're gonna call it. I'm gonna call it reviewing. I want to be capitalized. Reviewing when philosopher detective investigates the death of ants. And then I'll just add the description later since it's going to be that. We're gonna do it's gonna be education, and we're just gonna fucking uh, we're just gonna find a picture of Bruno Latour. That's what we're gonna make the thumbnail. Yeah, it's gonna be this one. Okay. Okay, I should do this then if I'm gonna do that, and now I can. Wait, can I not? Okay, I actually have to fucking save the image. Save the image. Images. Upload. Downloads. Where did it save? I'm so confused on where it saved. Save image. Oh, it's because it's a WebP file. Okay, I should actually go to the image. So hopefully it's not a WebP file. Save image as. Now it's a JPEG. So now it'll work. And then we're gonna go to. No, it's not made for kids. Live chat relay, anyone, live reactions. There's gonna be no slow mode. It's gonna be public, and it's going to be set for 1:30 p.m. Even though it's gonna go live like literally immediately. I'm gonna frickin' be, and then I'm gonna fucking frickin' link it to you guys. To establish the collective, humans and non-humans must both be disarmed. Don't allow humans to weaken object, social constructivism. Don't allow things to objectify humans. Okay, wait, can I do that? Wait, can I rid myself? Wait. How do I... Okay. So, I don't... So... There's a little bit of a problem. In that I just don't understand how to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, nothing makes sense to me. I'm old, I'm decrepit. Also, I think what I would say is, don't allow objects. No, actually, I would say it that way. Actually, no, it's actually fine. That's actually completely fine. Okay. You say it's easy, and yet I don't see you explaining to me how I frickin' do it. So I am baffled. I'm baffled. I don't understand. I don't understand anything. How to raid on YouTube. How to use YouTube Live Redirect. And send your live streamers viewers to Premiere. Okay, I don't care. Oh, I have to have more than 1,000 subscribers. I actually can't. Wait, does Lucy have more than 1,000 subscribers? Is this lying to me? Lucy, I say. Oh, look at that, Lucy does. Oh, so what I'm determining is I actually cannot do this. And that's the correct link, right? Yeah, apparently you have to have more than that. So everybody, we're ending stream, going to new stream, going to new place, going to new stream, go, bye. I'm ending the stream now.